No, well, what happened, you know, I don't know if you're recording it or not, but
we don't have to.
Yeah, and you can if you want, because it is an interesting story. It was during Cabela's circuit, when they had their circuit, and it was on Lake Sakakawea, and I had found a big group of fish about 50 miles from the landing, and they were big fish, there's no doubt. And in fact, I flat out told everyone, Keith or I, were going to win this tournament. And I was leading Angler of the Year. It was the last tournament of the year. And I got a co-angler draw. He was an elderly guy. He was probably in the mid-60s. And the forecast was for 35, 40-mile-an-hour winds out of the northwest, which is the worst possible wind for Sakakawea. And it gets really, really rough. I mean, there's bona fide 10-foot waves that can occur on that reservoir. It's way rougher than Oahe. It's way rougher than Fort Peck because of the fact that it lies in that wind direction. And so I said to the guy, hey, that's, you know, I said, oh man, I'm so glad that I drew you. And I took him to the side and I said, well, I got to be very realistic with you. I'm going to make a long run tomorrow, and it's supposed to be really, really bad. And they probably will send us out because it sounds like it's not going to be quite as bad early in the morning, but it's going to get bad during the day. And the wind's at a terrible position. I said, I think, you know, think about that, but I would encourage you to go back to the tournament director and maybe ask to fish in a boat that's going to be a little closer. And I said, I know there's about half the field, just from seeing how they practice and stuff, that are going to stay closer. And then I find out that he's got prostate cancer and he's going to be scheduled for surgery like the following week. And all of his friends were elderly guys too. And they're all trying to talk him into taking my advice. But he didn't make up his mind. So let me think on it overnight. And I said, okay, I'm just telling you. I'm not telling you have to switch or I'm going to be mad at you or anything like that. If you decide to go, I'll try to take it as easy as I can on you, but I am leading Angler of the Year. So roll in early in the morning, the next morning, a guy says, you know, I've tried to get you or Keith as a co-angler draw for 4 or 5 years. He said, I finally got one of you. And he says, I'm going to be real truthful with you. At my age, I may never get a crack at doing this again. I've decided I'm going to go. He says, and I won't complain. You know, I understand you're going to beat me up. I understand all that, but I cannot let this opportunity pass me by. So we go out, and we make it all the way up there just fine, up until one last corner, and then there's bona fide 8 to 9 foot waves by that time. And I'm the first one up there. The guy did great, and I hugged shorelines a lot tighter than I normally would have and stuff like that. And we started fishing, caught a fish right away, because going around the corner was just out of the question. Even if I could have wanted to go there, you know, I basically would not have been able to fish. So the problem was there were a number of boats that were going to go beyond me also, and they get to that same corner and they look at that and they go, and so they start fishing right on top of me. And it's like, now you're still dealing with rough water, and you've got 5 or 6 boats trying to fish one little point, and I'm going, well, the other side is a lot calmer over there. I can make it over there, and I had a bunch of spots. I like making big milk runs when I'm fishing in the reservoirs. I said to the guy, I said, hey, we'll just kind of nurse ourselves across the reservoir here, and I've got tons of spots on the other side. It's kind of a little bit more out of the wind. I think we're going to do good. And so we take off, and we're going slow. You can't go fast. It was big waves, but we're kind of troughing them. And we came off this one wave that was pretty big, and it hit not even that hard, but it hit harder than normal. And all of a sudden he goes, ooh, and he falls on the floor. And so I stopped the boat. And he said, he's laying on the floor, and he says, oh, he says, I twisted in the seat. I don't know why I did it, but I slipped off, and my shoulder hit the console. And I said, here, I'll help you up. And so help him get back up in his chair. I said, are you okay? He said, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Just let's get going. Let's keep going. And I said, okay. And so we start going. I'm starting to give the boat throttle, and I look at him, and he's over the side of the boat throwing up. And he was just totally normal and not green looking before that. So I said, are you throwing up because it hurts? He says, yeah, it really hurts. I said, that's it. We're done for the day. So you can't. I'm going to be okay, just fine. You just go where you're going to go. I said, we're not. I said, we're way up this thing. There's no boat landings. I said, the closest boat landing's 10 miles away, and I don't even know if I can raise someone on the radio, because there was, at that time, there was not really any cell signals. And so I'm going to ride the waves back, and we're going to try to get you to that landing and hopefully try to get some help. And so after a little bit, he kind of calmed down, and we kind of just floated our way. It took a long time, hours, to get to the boat landing. By then, there was a rancher that wanted to go up and see if there were boats fishing that rough water, and he happened to have, he kind of was interested in the tournament, so he had a Marine band, and he got my SOS. And so I said, hey, I've got a medical emergency here. Get an ambulance out here right away. This guy's hurt pretty bad, and we're going to need some help. So by the time I got to the boat launch, running out of time? Too much BSing?
It's fine. No, it's good.
Yeah.
We'll just have to change the battery out of it.
Okay. By the time I got to the boat launch, Flight to Life was there with the helicopter, and they immediately flew him out to Minot. Well, I couldn't legally go back by myself. So then the rancher, who was scared to death of the water, says, well, I'll go, I guess. And so he went with me, and I speared like 3 or 4 waves on the way back, because by then they were 10 foot tall, and and I got back in time, but I didn't get to fish. Knocked him off of his seat 3 times, and he was just scared to death. But I had big twin bilges, and got the boat in just fine. And get into shore. The rancher says, I've rode bulls my whole life. I've never been so scared in my whole life. I thought I was going to die for sure. Because one time he's laying in the back all covered with water. It's like, so we get in, and I am all worried about this guy. And his wife is basically gone, and I'm just beside myself. I'm so worried about what's going on. All of a sudden, the Cabela's guys get a call, and it's his wife. He's in the hospital. And the tournament director comes over and he says, hey, his back's broken. His wife wants to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe this, So I go up and I say hi, and he says, here, he wants to talk to you. And he says, how'd you do? I said, no, how'd you do? I said I didn't get any more fish. It took pretty much the whole time to get back. I said, how are you? You break your back? That's what I said. He says, yeah. He says, I cracked a vertebrae from what they say. It's a pretty bad crack. I'm going to have to be here for a while before I can go back. And I said, oh man, I am so sorry. He says, hey, stop right there. He said, you did everything humanly possible to warn me. He said, I take all responsibility for me going, you were doing fine. I sat on the chair cockeyed, it was my fault. He says, I own an insurance company. I guarantee you I'm not going to sue you, so just calm down. And he said, how are you doing in Angler of the Year? And I said, well, I'm not in first anymore. Ross Grothy just passed me by because Ross had a limit of smaller fish. And he says, all right. And it's like, he says, you make me one promise. You go out tomorrow and you kick ass, and I expect you're going to win Angler of the Year. And I said, well, thanks, man. I really feel bad. I'm telling you, now you can use me for basically for basically inspiration. Yeah. And I said, okay, man, I'll fish hard for you tomorrow. And so, honest to God, I went out and caught the heaviest weight of the tournament that last day. Wow. Won Angler of the Year. I passed Ross back by. And the moment I got in, there was a phone call from his wife again. He says, did you win? I said, I did. He says, yes! And he's like screaming in his house. It was the coolest thing ever. So, I mean, and he came, you know, he got back a few weeks later to home, and that winter he came a couple times to seminars. One time he had to drive 400 miles to see a seminar that I did.